clever, clever, clever.
Nathan, Fantasy Football League updates. The 2025 season is on its way. The commissioners have joined together, which means it's time for one thing and one thing only. The lottery is here. Commissioner Greg, how are we doing?
We're doing great. Excited to see where the draft picks end up here today. And I have heard some things that some big news might be on the way. A lot of things happen in the league this time of year, free agency and getting all the teams ready and back to spring practice. So excited to see what we get today.
Yeah, new class of rookies in as well. We've got some new teams. We covered that a little bit earlier today, and it's going to be exciting. So we're going to hop into the lottery. Now, it's not like normal NBA lottery or anything. 10 team names on the wheel. We spin it. We go from 10 to 1. So we're going to find out who's going to be picking at the end of the draft, which is snakes. So they'll get pick 11, or who's picking at the top and we'll snake down to pick 20. I'll start with you, Greg. Is there anywhere in this draft that you particularly want to pick? Like, if the wheel is to go in your favor, where is it you want to pick?
Yeah, ideally, I say picks 3, 4 range. Those are really good. Maybe even 5. Obviously, pick 1 holds a lot of value. You're guaranteed to get the best of best, but pick at the end of the second round really screws you over some great value. Looking at some of the ratings this year, they're just not as deep as they have been in previous years. A lot of players, a lot of ups and downs. We don't really know how they're going to end up this season. And, obviously, you want one of those top 5 picks to get one of those proven players that are going to perform. And then, if you end up with a 1 or 2 or even a 9, 10 pick, you're going to be taking a risk on a first rounder, someone who's not solidified, or taking that risk on a second rounder, picking up someone who's not going to add too much depth to your team. So,
It definitely is. And I have to agree with you. I'm right there in that 103 to 106 range is where I personally want to pick, but only time will tell. And I'm definitely interested to see how it'll shape up because we're here revealing this in May. And draft boards shift drastically till when we're projected to pick in August. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how picks and strategies develop as trades transpire in the coming months.
no, definitely excited. We got a couple proven teams, a couple GMs who are real big into giving up value in picks and, going after the players they really want in picks. So it'd be interesting to see, what unfolds once this draft order gets set and, obviously the window for trading picks comes open.
Well, let's waste no more time. We've got the wheel set up, so let's kick things off. All right, here we are, the wheel. We've got 10 teams sitting on it. We've introduced them already, but let's just take you through the 10 teams again. The newest additions, the Cancun Chameleons, of course, Commissioner Greg's Rocky River Rough Riders are back. Myself, the former champion of 2024, the Tucson Gila Monsters will be repping this year. The Bunnies relocate to Brooklyn. The Guantanamo Bay Flying Squirrels back for another year, along with the Michigan Avengers and the Zest Meisters, as well as who can forget the Empire Strikes Back. Then the Linden Crow, the Crow, and Bangkok Ball and Boas. I'm still, there's been talks. Linden the Crow, it's one individual crow, I guess.
Interesting, I mean, they knew their mascot right off the bat, and that's what they wanted their team to be. Don't mess around with, having a city and being tied to a city and, move in with, if the city's not producing. Nope, we're going right with our mascot, ride or die with them. Great strategy, in my opinion.
Hey, I'm all here for it. So we'll see who gets lucky. But the 10th pick, there are some teams that prefer it and like the switch from 10 to 11. And then there are some teams who don't really like it. Like personally, myself, picking there last year, I definitely was not in a spot to enjoy that flip. So I traded back a little bit in the second round. So we'll see what the approach is this year at 10. So let's get that first wheel spin underway. Here we go. It's going to be an exciting one. Here we go. The roll coming around. It's closing in on the gap, but it's not going to be close enough. The Cancun Chameleons, who finished fifth last year at 8-6, will take their second trip to the 110 after drafting there in 2023.
Personally, I kind of like this. The Chameleons, I feel like their GM, definitely a talented guy. I think he can do a lot with this pick, and I think, he can even work up some deals, if he wants to try to trade forward. potentially trading away that 11th overall pick and moving up in the first round and kind of moving back in the second round, kind of setting himself up a little bit better. I could see it working out well for him. I think he's got a great thing going, and I look forward to see what he does with this pick.
Yeah, and you look at his history. He started the year at the draft of 2021 at the 101, took CMC, battled it with the 106, where he took Derrick Henry the next year. And then that experience at the 110. It was Patrick Mahomes in that draft. And then he doubled up with Josh Allen. I don't know if he will recreate that double quarterback system or what he'll do there. Definitely interesting. But then last year he picked at the 102 and took CD Lamb, trying to improve that best finish, though. His best is fifth place. He's done that twice in the league. This is a talented manager, just hasn't had the draw in the playoffs that I think he'd like.
For sure, I'm excited to see, manager obviously as you were talking is very talented and I think he's got a lot of ways he can go with it, but obviously you got to look to break that hump, as someone who had a draw to the playoffs, making the playoffs last year, pushing into third, not the finish we wanted, but it's just sometimes it takes that fire starter, sometimes it takes the risky draft, drafts can be criticized, but at the end of the year it's all on how the tables lie. So
Well, we'll see what he does with the 110, but let's chat with him first. Let's send it to our interview we had with him after the draft reveal. We're with the managers of the Cancun Chameleons, formerly the Iguanas. Name switch. What's with that this season? Had to mix things up
Well,
a little different.
yeah, I mean, I've been in the iguanas, quite a few years now, and has been cooking. We've had that steady climb up. We finished ninth twice in a row, and we finished fifth twice in a row. And I don't know, man. Maybe the name change is what gets me to the next step. I feel like I had a good year. I was a top scoring team, and then we got bounced round one, dude. I don't know what the hell happened. So, I don't know. Maybe the name switch up. We're sticking with the reptiles because we've had the climb up. But honestly, the iguanas ain't looking at. And to be honest, I went to Mexico and I saw a chameleon. So
Fair enough. Well, there's the
yeah.
inspiration. Obviously, you mentioned it. The best finish is fifth twice, and then there's two ninth places in there. Your pick history, you picked at 101 the first year in the league, then 106, 110, and 102. So some pretty high extremes there.
Yeah.
Where, if you could pick, do you want to pick in this year's draft?
I want one of the late middle ones, honestly. I'm thinking like 6, 7, I think is probably the best. Honestly, I think a lot of the top players are gonna be some flops, but I think there's some value in the middle of the middle late round. Uh, but yeah, I'm not a big Saquon believer. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know. I think if Gibbs can fall to me at like 5, that'd be peak. But I don't know. We'll see what happens, I guess.
What pick don't you want? Like, if you hear you have this pick, this is not a good spot to be in.
Bro, if I get 101, I'm gonna be pressed because I hate that pick, bro. Like, let's
All
be
right.
real. Like,
You,
I
yeah.
dude, I picked Christian McCaffrey that year, bro. And he played. I don't even know if he played a game actually. Like, I should have picked him,
He
and he
did.
did. I think he was on my team. I think I traded him. I traded him away, and I traded for him again that year. And like, I think he actually played one game. He got like 10 points for me, bro. Like, that was actually awful. That was the year where I had like literally like 5 out of my 6 draft picks get injured. Like before the season even started. Like,
Brutal out here. I mean, the draft history, we'll talk about it quick. CMC at the 101. Then the following year, you go Derrick Henry at the 106, which turned out to be a fine pick for
yeah,
you.
he was good. He was good.
Then you go 110, where you go double QB, Patrick Mahomes,
Awful.
Josh
Awful.
Allen, a
Can't do that.
strategy. And
Yeah.
then last year, you acquired 2 first-round picks, but you owned the 102 and took CD Lamb. You got to say
Mhm.
that worked out for the offense.
Yeah, it was good. I think he was finished top 10. Like he definitely wasn't wide receiver one off the board, but I mean, you can't complain honestly if you're top 10, like whatever.
So I'd say 2 for 4 on hitting your draft picks, which isn't terrible, but you want to mention the climb. You're going to be picking this year at the 110. You're going to be
Gosh.
back in a spot you've already seen before, but maybe not the double quarterback strat.
Oh, that's awful. Okay.
This is the reaction. I'm not going to lie. When the wheels spun, we saw it. We figured this would be kind of your reaction behind the curtain in the draft room.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Yeah, mainly because I like having that one good quarterback, and if you with the 110, you don't get the 3/4 swing. All of our quarterbacks go like round 2 and 3 usually. And if I'm the last pick a third, I don't know, or first pick a third, whatever it is, I don't even know, but like it kind of sucks. Mainly because if I go quarterback early, then everyone else doesn't go quarterbacks, then I get cooked on all the players. But if I don't go quarterback and all the quarterbacks go, then I get fried. I don't
It's a
know.
weird spot to be in as the
Yeah.
guy who picked 110 last year. Trades are in your picture. You can 100% trade back
Yep.
or trade up into the third round. It'll be interesting to see what you do there for sure.
Yeah. I think so. Like, there's some dangers. I think CMC will probably fall to me at 10. I'm not touching him, bro. Someone else can have him. I ain't doing it. I ain't no risk for me.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
But we'll see how they slide. I don't really know what the like ADP is looking like at the end of the first right now, but I don't think I'm gonna get one of like the top 8 guys, which kind of blows. So we might be picking a quarterback early. I don't know. We'll see.
Oh, all right. I obviously things can greatly change from when we're filming here in May to August 15th, right around there when we're drafting. But right now they've got Malik Neighbors, CMC, Ashton Genty in that range. So we'll see what that means for the Chameleons and what you go there. We're gonna ask you one more final question. We've asked everybody this. Who do
Mhm.
you think has the 101?
Who do I think has the 101? Well, I mean, I have the 110, so like I was the first name drawn, so I got literally 9 other options. So I guess everyone else doesn't know any of the other picks. Um, I think Zach's had it twice. I don't think he would get it a third time. Um, I'm gonna go with you. I think you got the 101.
I'm back to the 101.
I think you go from the 110 to the 101 switch up, I think.
The complete flip flop, you think, for the Tucson Gila Monsters? Well, obviously, you'll find out, but I guess congrats on the 110. Excited to see what you
Oh,
do.
that ain't a congrats. It's apologies, man. I got the dog pick, dude.
Hey, we've seen teams. I mean, I won last year and had the 110. So you can definitely try to recreate the process that I
You also traded though. You're gonna have to like you have to work, I feel like. If you get 105, you're chilling because then you can just react to how everyone else does. But
Hey, the big thing is Lyndon the Crow or Brady, the manager of the Crows, is still in talks for his picks. So that's
oh
always an
god.
option.
See, he wants to he might not want my pick. That's the issue. Is I can't finesse Brady because I have the end of the first then. So it's
He
like what's
might
the
want that. He's searching for whatever he can get. You know that.
yeah.
So you also don't know where he's picking. So it'll
I
be
don't. I
interesting to
don't.
see. But the 110 is where the Chameleons will be picking. We'll see what you can do there. Congratulations. Thanks so much for talking with us.
See ya.
Well, that was an excellent interview there. 110. We'll see how that works out for the manager of the Chameleons. Let's go to 109. 109 is a spot that we've seen a lot of success. Some players slip in the draft. You get a sneaky pick at 109, and then you have a lot of success. I mean, teams like the Michigan Avengers have proven that in a couple different years. So I think the 109's got a little bit of talent, but definitely still a mess with the prospects there.
For sure. I think looking at some of the draft rankings and obviously subject to change a lot as we get more reports from rookie camps and stuff like that. But just looking at it, 109, you might be taking a risk on a rookie this early. Some of our big rookie names, like, Travis Hunter stands out to me. Could very well sneak into even if not a mid first round in some drafts or some risky managers, but you could see him at a 109 and, on the Jaguars, I like it, target for Trevor Lawrence, but it could be risky, could be a complete bust, and then, quick pick in the second round, same thing, you go risky with that pick too, you could end up in a very bad spot very quickly.
Ashton Genty is also a name that kind of stands out there. And then those second year players, Malik Neighbors sits there. And then, of course, the ever daunting Christian McCaffrey also projected right now around there. So some avenues to take for sure. Let's waste no more time though. Picking at the 109 spot for the 2025 draft will be, looks like it's going to be the Zestmeisters. That it will be. The eighth finishing team in 2024. They picked high in a lot of drafts. They started the year at 108 in 2021. Then they picked 102, 102, and 101. So now they found themselves at the tail end of the draft for what feels like it's been a while for him.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be interesting to see what the Zestmeisters do. Traditionally, looking back at some of the draft and stuff like that, Zestmeisters tend to make some risky picks, maybe overvaluing players a little bit. It's worked out in their favor a few times, but it has seemed to burn them in recent years a little bit. Maybe kind of reaching on some players or, they like to target those big veteran names who carry a lot of weight, but that's the one thing about vets is, they've proven themselves, but eventually they have to have that down year. And it just seems like the Zestmeisters have kind of fallen into a lot of veteran players' down years within their team. So,
Well, maybe the 109 will benefit them with a lot of youth here at the back end of the first round. You never know. They did get burned last year with CMC. They did still find a way to finish 7-7, but you can't blame them for being at the 101. Taking Christian McCaffrey, still seeking out that first playoff appearance, though, in the league. Let's see if the 109 is the spot for them. So we're going to take it quickly to our interview with the Zestmeisters, see how they're feeling about the 109.
Good morning, fellas, from beautiful Kenya here this morning. It's a nice morning here. In regards to the draft, I'm pick number 9, so I don't feel too good about it. Was hoping for a lower pick, but it is what it is. And then my prediction for the number 1 pick is probably Gavin. Nuts and bolts. Thank you.
Time for the 108. You just heard from the Zestmeisters, who will be picking at 109, at least for right now. Trades are still in the picture, but let's reveal that 108 pick. I think that's a similar situation as the 109, where you can take some flyers on some players, but you can also find just some of the tail end success that might slip from the 5 or 6 range.
yeah, I think so. Anything's possible. With the league format having two QBs, it's not uncommon to see a QB taken with those first round picks. So you could get, a player that's traditionally projected in more traditional leagues at that 4, 5, 6 spot and has a lot of value. You could see them fall all the way to the 108 pick. And, a manager that's not seeking that QB value right off the bat can pick up a really good standout player, even at a draft position that, to an average person in an average league may seem a little bit less than ideal.
Yeah, definitely some possibilities with this 2 QB format. Let's find out who's picking at the 108. This is a big spot because this is going to get us into that top 7 player range. And it looks like we're going to have the Lyndon the Crow. Lyndon the Crow will be making a playoff, or rather a first round pick. They finished 9th last year, 5-9, the team known as the Grand Rapids Groundhogs, but that's the 2022 champion that's picked in the later half of every draft. 105 twice, 107, and 108 before. But this is the big wild card. They love to trade either up into the first round twice or trade out of it.
Yeah, for sure. This general manager, it's a fun manager to watch. You never know what's going to come. Throughout this whole season, keeps us all on our toes. I'm excited to see what he does with this pick. I personally, I don't know if this pick makes it even to draft day. Once these picks come out and all the GMs have the opportunity to trade, I think this pick, may go away. We may even see a draft day situation where this pick goes away, and then we end up seeing this pick come back through after 3, 4 trades later. Kind of that chain effect. So it'll be super interesting to see what Lyndon the Crow's team does this year.
It's definitely going to be interesting, especially with how much value does the 108 hold in this league. We've seen him move things around with all the way from the 105 to the 107 in the first year's draft. We will see what this manager is able to do with this pick, but let's chat with him here, see what he has to say and what his plans are with the 108. All right, sitting down with the manager of Lyndon the Crow. I mean, what a name. What's the story behind that? Can we take a second to talk about that?
The crow just really spoke to me and just had to represent the crow capital of the world, Linden, and just gonna go out there and represent this season.
But it's one singular crow.
It's just the crow.
The Crow. All right. Well, we'll get to know that. But the 9th place team last year, the 2022 champ, though, you finished 5-9 last year. And for the first time, you're our chaos creator in the first round. You've traded up or traded into the first round a couple years now. And then last year's the first year you traded your pick to move out of the first round. And obviously it didn't quite go the way you wanted. Is there going to be a new strategy? Are we going back to the old strategy? What are you thinking right now?
I think we're just gonna be trying to trade up this season. Like, I want a couple first rounders, and I
Oh,
don't care about the rest of my picks.
Wow. All right. All right. Well, we know in the rules you've got to at least keep the same number of picks. So that'll be interesting to see how you work it out. But what pick, if you had to choose right now, would you want? If you
I
got to
want the
choose
first pick. Give me
what?
the first pick.
The first pick. You want
First
101.
overall pick.
All right. Which pick wouldn't you want if you had to pick one?
10.
10? All right. Well, I well, let's first, sorry, I've been doing this with everybody. Let's reveal your picks. 107 in year one, you took Tyreek Hill. We're going with your pick, not the picks you've traded to get other players. The 105 the year after, you go Austin Eckler and win the league with him. 108 the following year, you go Nick Chubb. And then 105, obviously, you traded away. You traded it to the Iguanas. So this year, you will be picking at a familiar spot. You're picking at 108. You don't look happy. You don't look happy with what you got.
I was ready for that first overall pick.
That's fair. That's fair. I think you had to be one of the only people that told me you wanted the 101.
Yeah. I mean, I had my player picked out. I hope he doesn't get taken.
Hey, well, it doesn't mean you can't trade up. We know it's possible. You could move up to the 101. Who do you think got the 101? If you had to guess, who was the lucky guy that got 101 that you might be approaching to trade?
I want to say it's Travis.
No, 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 no.
All right, the Iguanas, or now the Chameleons.
Chameleons. The
Yes.
Chameleons. Yes.
We're still getting used to these new names, but you think it's the Chameleons.
Yeah.
All right. So obviously you might have to shift up the draft strategy. Obviously we can expect some trades this offseason. We'll keep you updated with that. We'll see what you do with the 108. Congratulations, and we look forward to see what you do in August.
I'm excited. I'm excited to take the first quarterback in the draft.
Oh boy, here we
Drake
go.
May Drake May's coming off in the first round.
Well, there it is. Drake May, 108. Book it. And if that happens, we might be seeing a ninth place finish again. Who knows? But thanks so much for joining us, the manager of Lyndon the Crow. Well, definitely some interesting things to monitor there with the 108. Some big plans ahead, and we'll definitely keep our eye on that pick for sure. But it's time for the 107, and this is about the range where I think you and me are kind of sitting like, okay, I got through the first three. I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable with the top 7 players on the board rather than the murky 10 through 8.
Yeah, for sure. At this point, you're starting to, get a pick where you are going to have a chance at one of those big names, and you have a chance if someone falls out of that, traditional top 3 locked players that we see at the beginning of every draft. It's happened in this league. We've seen players fall, and, the 107, you may not get the great chance to get them, but there's a chance they fall, especially anything can happen in this league. And my favorite part about the picks that we're getting in now is you get a break. You get to be able to see what happens in the first round, kind of get your wits about you, look at the board, and get ready for that second pick. The 108, the 109, the 110, I feel like it's too quick of a turnaround sometimes. You pick a player the other teams have locked, and, that you didn't mess them up at all. It kind of puts you on the clock very quickly if you didn't have your draft perfectly planned out or you lose your second round draft pick. You can end up in that kind of panic position. And we've seen GMs fall in that panic position and it ultimately hurt their team in the end.
Yeah, definitely a lot you can do. I think we're still in the chaos range here with the 107 where you can ruin the later board in the second round or the third round for some of these managers. But let's find out who's in the position to possibly do that in 2025. 107 is a massive spot. And it looks like it's going to be the Empire Strikes Back, who last year missed the playoffs. They finished 7th at 6-8, kept the name, and they're trying to recreate what they did when they finished 3rd in 2023. The end of the surge to 2024, the surge they went on was incredible. If the momentum can carry over to the draft, this is an excellent spot for the Empire.
Yeah, obviously they ended on the season on, maybe not the note they wanted, but compared to the first half of the season, definitely made those changes they needed to make. I could see him very well, ending up in a great position. This is a player that traditionally and GM that traditionally won't really trade will tend to want to stay with that 107 pick. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with it. Obviously they're going to watch the chaos that kind of happens around them with draft picks, and I'll be interested to see what this GM's idea and draft board for themselves kind of look like when they head into draft day.
Well, I think something to note with the Empire is they have been excellent when drafting. They take some of the players that maybe had a down year the year before or had an injury. You look at their former picks in 2021, they take Devontae Adams at pick 103. Then they get Jamar Chase at 110 the next year, Saquon Barkley at 109 the year after that. And then just last year, Justin Jefferson at 106, who turned in a good season nonetheless, despite falling from that 101 position he was in 2022. So a good track record here for the Empire to take those players that people might not be high on that end up producing.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be interesting to see what they do with it. And like you said, this GM manager is no stranger to picking up players that may have had a down year before, and he seems to have great luck in picking players that are going to have that rebound year. It may not be the top scorer, but churn out good, consistent performances every year.
It's going to be exciting to see what he does in this year. Let's pick his brain a little bit on what he thinks he can do with this 107. All right, we're now joined with the manager for the Empire Strikes Back. I mean, the end of the season push, the win streak you were on at the end of the year, you bring back the name. I mean, you've got to be carrying some momentum into the season, right?
Yeah, we're hoping so. Unfortunately, our team just started clicking a little too late. Down the stretch, we had some good games, kind of did pretty well in the losers bracket there, but hoping to take that into this next season, build off of it, of course.
Yeah, seventh place finish at 6-8. Your best finish in 2023, trying to get back to that point where you finished third. What pick can help you do that? What pick do you hope you have?
I'm honestly looking for maybe like pick number 4. I like that like middle round kind of pick, like 4 through 6 area.
Okay. All right. What pick is a no-go? What are you out on? What don't you want?
I really don't like the 1st or the 10th. I don't like going back to back.
Common answers, and I can respect it. Well,
Yep.
I can confirm. I mean, you've in your draft history, you've picked 103, then 110, 109, and 106. And you've taken some good value there. Devontae Adams, Jamar Chase, Saquon Barkley, Justin Jefferson, all players that have worked out for you. So it feels like wherever you pick, you're probably getting some good talent and feeling good about the talent you're getting.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. I kind of like just the player kind of falling into my lap and kind of letting everybody else make the decision for me.
Well, I think you've got an excellent spot for that. You're picking at the 107.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, we'll take that.
I
That's
feel like
beautiful.
that's tail end of those like top 7 guys. After that, you get a drop off. So they're kind of going to make your decision maybe a lot easier for you than you might think.
Yeah, no, that'll definitely be helpful. Yeah, dude. 7's gonna be nice. Get those like top 5 out of the way, make my decision for me, then get to pick real quick too in the second round. That'll be nice.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be definitely interesting to see how you use that. We've been asking everybody though. Who do you think's got the 101? Who's picking at the top of the board?
I'm gonna guess the Zestmeisters.
Again, going for the
Yep.
second time. I mean, that's a guy who's picked at 102 twice, 101
Yep.
once.
Like he's just got that bad curse to his team. It's gotta be.
All right. Well, we'll find out if the Zestmeisters have it. Congratulations on the 107. Excited to see what you do there and good luck this season.
Yeah, thank you, Nate. I appreciate it.
Finally, here at the 106. The 106 is definitely that range you want to be in. You and me kind of talked about it. It was a highlighted spot for us both. You're right in the middle of the pack. So you get that tail end and the back end that you can kind of just monitor and do with it what you want.
Yeah, for sure. Like I've been saying this whole draft preview, there's chaos that always happens in those first 5 picks. And from the 106 position, I feel like, you can kind of escape a little bit of that chaos and be on the tail end of it, but you're going to get good value. There's rarely a draft where we don't see a good value player at 106. And then the midpoint of picking in every round, you're never going to really lose out on too much value from that exchange from the first to second or second to third round. You're always going to be in the middle. This is great for teams and managers that like to build maybe not the star player teams, but those players who just perform every week, players that get 15 to 20 range every week. And so we've seen teams from these positions have great success in the past. So
We definitely have. Let's find out who's the middleman or part of that middleman tandem at 106. It's a big spot, and I think anybody will be happy to find out and get that call. They're the 106, and it looks like it's going to be the Bangkok Ball and Boas who have kind of picked in this no man's land year in and year out. 109, 103, 105. and 107. The main thing they told me, they don't want the 101. I think they'll be happy with the 106.
Yeah, obviously, this manager, he's made teams out of those like you said, no man's land picks, and it'll be interesting to see what he does with this pick. I wouldn't be surprised if it could potentially end up in a trade. He might move up to that, 103, 104 position. I can see it happening, but the 106, great position, gonna get a value player. Excited to see what he does with this pick for his team.
Hey, finished sixth place last year, made it into the playoffs, seemed like a formidable foe, and bounced out in the first round. That's his best finish ever, is sixth place. He always puts together good lineups on paper. We'll see if he can contribute. You mentioned the trade out. He traded the one time he was above the 105 at 103 in 2022, traded out of the first round, didn't quite find the success he wanted ever since. The closest he's been to above that first half is the 105. So he drafted Cooper Kupp that year. We'll see if the 106 does him a little bit more favors. So why not we hear from him? The 106, let's see how happy he is with that spot. All right, guys, we're here with the manager of the newly named Bangkok Ballin' Boas. How are we doing? You ready for the 2025 season?
I'm so ready. I mean, I named my team Ballin' because they're going to be ballin'. I'm not going to be getting unlucky like last year. I'm going to this the year of the luck for the BBB team. Bangkok going all the way. I'm ready to see what pick I have.
Well, you finished sixth last year, which is your best finish, tied for your best finish in the league.
That's embarrassing. Yeah.
8-6. You had a great regular season. The team was there. If you had to come into this interview, what pick, not knowing obviously, what pick would you have wanted in this year's draft?
I want kind of, I think near the middle, like somewhere 3 to 4 or 7, 8 kind of range. So I can get either close to the end of the snake or get those really good guys. I think the very end and the very beginning are kind of tough, but I'll work with whatever I got.
What if you could pick one pick in the entire draft? What would it not be? We gotta get.
What would it not be? I don't want to be number one. I don't want to be the first. Well, it would be kind of hype. Maybe. No, I don't want to be the first pick. That's too much pressure.
All right. No, that's fair enough. Well, there was a theme. We'll revisit your quick draft. Get the viewers an idea of what you've been doing. Year one, you went 109. You picked Stefan Diggs. And then year two, the 103, the first time you were above the 105 at all, you traded out of the first round. You said, hey, I'll take a second and a third, and you'll do what you did. 105, you go and get your legend, Cooper Kupp. And then last year, the 107, you go and get good value, you go and get Bijan Robinson. So it's a pretty good track record outside of the weird trading year. There was a theme we kind of discussed when revealing your lottery pick. We talked about, because I remember you telling me before this, you didn't want the 101. There was you picked it. You finished 8-6. You finished 6. You're tied for your best finish ever. You're picking at the 106.
Oh, okay. I can work with that.
Yeah, I mean, you're picking right in the dead middle of the snake. You'll get a one-spot flip every other round. We thought this was a great spot because you take a lot of good value, and usually on paper you start the year with one of the best teams, and there's some good value right there in the heart of the draft.
Mm-hmm. I'm liking that because depending on where the quarterbacks go, because we got the 2 QB league, I could be getting a very good quarterback in the second round, early second round. That's probably where the good quarterbacks are starting to go. So if I could get Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen there, that would be excellent. With pairing it with the sixth overall flex pick, probably. And like, I don't know, Jay Jettis might even fall that far this year, potentially.
Wow, yeah,
Jahmyr Gibbs, maybe. I don't know.
Last year, but
say again.
He was taken at the 106 last year. Jefferson.
He was okay.
So it'll be interesting to see, but you're already hinting at a second round quarterback, something you haven't been known to do necessarily.
I know, because I need to get a good quarterback.
Taking a new strategy, that'll be interesting to see. And I'm sure, a lot of the league members will take that on notice. Maybe we'll see a QB storm before you get your 205 pick in, but we figured you'd be happy with the 106.
Yeah. I'm good with it. It's definitely workable. I didn't want the first overall pick. I'm sorry, whoever got that. That's too much pressure, and it mostly hasn't worked as good as a number one overall pick should have. Definitely not last year.
Yeah, last year was rough. And then you look at a couple of the other histories of the 101, they've found ways to win or found ways not to win. So who do you think is going to be your biggest competition? Not knowing the board, can you actually let's do this. Can you guess who the 101 is?
I mean, it's a crapshoot, but oh God, if it's Brady, he'll probably sell that for like 10 sixth rounders or something weird and have the whole fifth and sixth round. I think it's someone. Hmm. I think Greg might have gotten it. You were in a call with him earlier, right?
Yes, the commissioner's lottery draft.
I think he might have been there and he might have had like a little moment like I didn't rig that, I promise, little Adam Silver moment. So I don't know. He might, I think it might be Greg. That's my guess.
All right. Well, when your portion, the best part about this is it comes up at the 106. So we'll be building the hype, seeing your predictions, and obviously you're thrilled to be at the 106. So congratulations. Can't wait for August to roll around for our draft. Obviously the boards will change drastically, and in your case, obviously you're hoping for maybe a slide for Gibbs or Jettis, and we'll keep an eye out for that second round quarterback. So congratulations, manager of the Bangkok Boas, Ball and
Thank you.
Boas, that is.
The
So
ball and boas.
we will see you in August. Congratulations.
Thank you. See you in August.
Well, it's time for the 105, the actual middleman in this draft. This, I think, is an excellent spot to be. You can either get the slipping talent of the top four players on some boards, or you can take a flyer here because you flip right around, right back in the same spot or almost in the same spot you were in. This is kind of where a lot of teams have success.
Yeah, for sure. We've seen, some of our champs pick from these positions or traded these positions in some of the rounds and just had great success, constantly, putting together those good lineups and at the 105, I like my chances to be able to get one of those big name players, or even if a QB gets selected, now you're getting one of the four top guys in the draft and you're turning around and picking mid-second round. You don't have that long wait like the 101 and 102 has in that second round where you can watch some big value players kind of fall off the board.
Well, I think you and me were just kind of mentioning it. A lot of players or a lot of managers who have had a lot of success in this league. The odd man out, technically, the Guantanamo Bay Flying Squirrels, but this is a prime spot for a lot of these defending champs or former champions in the league or teams like yourself who have had a lot of success.
Yeah, for sure. I've traditionally looking at the draft history, I've kind of fell in most of these positions as kind of mid-draft and we've obviously had our ups and downs, we've changed draft strategy over the years, some years we've kind of looked for a more aggressive rebuild and some years we've kind of taken the back seat, but there's a lot of ways you can go about this. You can attack those top players or you can also kind of fall back and get good value at this position, I feel like. So I don't think any manager who ends up with this position and this draft pick is going to be upset by any means.
Well, let's find out. It's a big spot. I'm excited to see who picks here. And it looks like the rebranded Brooklyn Bunnies, the fourth place finisher, the 2021 champion, will be at the 105.
For sure, this is really interesting. Brooklyn Bunnies, I feel like, we'll talk to them pretty soon here, but I feel like this is going to be an amazing spot for them. I expect them to be super ecstatic that they got this position, and, I think they're going to make a great team with this position, that kind of mid-pick every round. They're going to put together some good value as a manager who traditionally doesn't have maybe those superstars, but always has good value teams. They're going to thrive in this position, and look for them to have a great draft and potentially a great season just from having this position.
Well, don't mention it to him maybe, but the history of drafting running backs and them not working out has been a theme. 2021 at the 102, they go Dalvin Cook. He has a bad year. 107 the following year, they go Najee Harris. He's got a bad year. And then Austin Eckler the following year. Last year, we saw him completely flip the script, go A.J. Brown at the 108. We'll see if he touches a running back in the first round again. And
Yeah, I agree. It'll be interesting to see what he does here, and maybe he shies away from the running back. This isn't one of our more riskier managers, but we could even see a reach for a top QB here. It wouldn't be unheard of. We've seen QBs drafted even earlier with that two QB format, so we'll see what kind of strategy he puts together and if there's potentially movement within his picks.
yeah, definitely a possibility. Let's chat to him right now. Here with the 2021 champion, the first one of the entire series. The Bay City Bunnies now turned Brooklyn, so we relocate cities. What came to the decision for Brooklyn instead of Bay City?
Yeah, so we started out in Berlin, and that got us a fourth place finish. And we moved to Bay City, and we finished fourth again. So we decided to keep moving it along. So we've settled on Brooklyn for this upcoming season.
Well, a first, a fourth, and a fourth at 7-7 last year. You put up another good season. You've had a lot of success. You've been a consistent playoff team. Things have been going well. Let's go through your draft history though, because that's huge. Obviously, year one you go 102, you win the whole thing with Dalvin Cook. The following year you go 107 and get Najee Harris. 107 again the following year and go Austin Eckler. And then you throw the running backs out of the picture. And last year at the 108, you go A.J. Brown because of the not so fun success the running back room had gotten you in the first round.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting to see how you approach the strategy. Does the theme continue? Is it 107, 107, 108, 108, or 109? Where do you think, not knowing obviously, where do you want to pick in this year's draft?
Not the 107. I would prefer, I don't know if I want to be near the very top, but if I could be 4 or 3, otherwise I like 10.
Oh, wow.
Those would be my 3 preferred.
110, the 103, or the 104 is what you're looking for. What do you not? Well, obviously, you mentioned the 107. Is there a pick that you're just like outside of the 107, you're just a no go, or is it the 107 that you're like, I'm sick of it?
I'm just kind of in the middle. I know like all evens out, but I like having picks that are kind of closer together.
All right.
So I guess 5, 6, and 7, I don't necessarily want, but I'd be fine as long as it's not 7.
Okay. Well, I want you to know that feels like a hot take because I've heard a lot of people say, hey,
Okay.
right in the middle, I'm happy because I get the middle of the flip every time. But I will let you know, you are picking at the 105.
5, 6, and 7. I don't necessarily want. Okay. I'm fine with that. Not exactly what I wanted, but like, oh shoot.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're temporarily experiencing difficulties. Please stand by.
Anyways, 105, not the worst. I'm okay with it. Better than the 106 or 107 in my opinion. So we should be able to make something work with that.
You get the luxury of the flip being right in the middle. There's some good talent hanging around that might slip out of the top 4, or you might take a flyer. We've seen a lot of different strategies. Is it going to be a similar strategy for you this year? Obviously it's worked, or with the 105 now, obviously not picked in sort of that territory. Does it warrant a new strategy?
Yeah, I mean, being early on, it's not August yet. I'll have to dive in and do some more research. Definitely probably looking at one of those top running backs or receivers, though. Unless something crazy happens, I'm not going quarterback.
Fair enough. We haven't heard anything crazy yet. But final question for you. Who do you think is picking at the 101?
The 101? I bet Zach got it again. I feel like it's a Zach thing to get.
The Zestmeisters, who have picked at 108, 102, 102, and 101, that's in order, are back at the 101.
That's my guess.
Redemption for CMC. All right. Well, we'll find out. Obviously, you'll find out when this video gets posted up. But congratulations on the 105. Excited to see what you do here, and we'll see you again in August.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. Here we go. The 104. This is about the spot, I think, the frontmost that I think either you or me wanted to be in this draft. And maybe one of us can get it. Maybe you and me are picking top 3. But for me personally, and I think for you as well, there's, I think, 4 players that sit atop the board that I think any of us would be happy to get. And you're guaranteed one it here.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of great value, looking at the draft class, and like I said, a lot of things to change, but, these top 4 players, not to be named because we don't want to give any secrets away, but I think there's going to be great value here, and I think any team right here is going to be happy, and it'll be interesting. Personally, I'm looking to hopefully get this pick or even the next pick, but hopefully get chose by the wonderful wheel in the next two picks.
We'll find out. Does the wheel have Commissioner Greg's back? Well, a little bit of a teaser there, and it doesn't have either of our backs. One of the most successful teams in the entire league, the Michigan Avengers, runners up last year in 2023. They win the league. Their worst finish is their first year in 2021 and they finished fourth. I mean, this is a guy who thrives in the first round. He's picked at 104, 101, 103, and then 109 last year. So he's going to love this positioning.
Yeah, for sure. This is one of the, like we were saying, with the kind of exception of the Guantanamo Bay Flying Squirrels right now, we're all in blue bloods of the sport. So it's great to see some of the blue bloods, getting those top picks with the format that the league decided to have for the draft this year. Definitely an interesting place, and I look forward to seeing what they do with it.
Well, let's hear from him right now. We're here with the manager of the Michigan Avengers. I mean, let's be real here, man. You are one of the most successful managers in the league. Your worst finish is fourth place, and that was in 2021. So you keep the name, and the success just keeps rolling. Champion in 2023. How are we feeling going into 2025?
I'm feeling confident, man. I mean, over the years, teams have been rooting against us. We've got the odds stacked against us, but we're still as confident as ever that we're going to come in and be successful and make the playoffs. That's always the expectation over here. So
well, it's a valid expectation. I mean, you've been doing it consistently, and a lot of that success has started in the draft, maybe with some players that people might not be high on. We look at your draft history. You start out the 104, took Alvin Kamara. Then you get the 101, take Jonathan Taylor. The 103 goes CMC in a good year. And then the 109 last year and take Brees Hall. So you've been more top heavy in the draft pick. Do you like that position? Where is the ideal position for you to be picking?
oh, good question. Definitely not at the top. I like to fare kind of in the middle somewhere.
Okay.
Last year, I was towards the end, and it kind of worked out in my favor. I got two solid running backs back to back. Ideally, I'd like to be somewhere in the middle, but we're gonna take what we get and ride with it.
All right. So that's the ideal. Where is the unideal? Where, if you don't want any selection spot, where do you not want to be picking this year?
Number one.
All right.
Picking number one, and number 10 would kind of, I mean, having back-to-back picks isn't too bad. But definitely number one. I do not want number one.
All right. Well, I will announce that you'll be picking this year at a familiar spot at 104.
All right.
Right there towards the middle. Not a shabby spot. History shows Alvin Kamara back in 2021. So you're friendly with the running backs. Can we expect a running back at 104? A lot bunched up there in the early projections here.
I'll definitely be looking for a skill player, running back, wide receiver. I'm not set on anyone particularly yet, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, we'll definitely see the 104. I think that's close enough to the middle and not too far up front, but it'll be interesting to see. Now, we've asked everybody this. You obviously don't know the draft order until the rest of the order drops in a couple days here. Who do you think has 101?
Oh, I'll go Brady.
You think Brady? All right.
I'll give Brady the 1-1.
All right. That's a common answer, which is kind of funny. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. But the 104, the Michigan Avengers trying to run it back, be the first team to 2 championships. Best of luck and congratulations on the 104.
Awesome, sir. Thank you very much.
All right, there we go. 104 is in the books. 103 is on the board. It's the 2 commissioners that are sitting here talking to you and the team that's looking to finally turn it around, the double-managed Guantanamo Bay Flying Squirrels. So the 103 is up for grabs. Let's waste no more time with it. Here's the spin for the 103. I mean, I don't want to fall anymore. I don't know about you. It doesn't look like I might not do any more falling. I'm going to be picking the reigning champion at 103, which is a spot I feel pretty confident in picking.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like this is a great position. You highlighted before you wanted to be in that 103 to 106 range. So I look forward to seeing what you do with it. Traditionally is not maybe a riskier manager. You might keep this position, might potentially even trade, if the deal's just right. But I have great faith that you'll have great success with this pick, and it'll be interesting to see what you do with it.
Hey, I appreciate it a ton, man. I mean, you look at my history, I picked at 106, 109, 101, and then the nightmare that was the 110 last year. So I'm happy to be in that upper range this year, especially with my board looking pretty top heavy with some of these top guys. So happy to add them to a championship culture and really just looking forward to seeing who's going to be picking in front of me, knowing that I've got a really good franchise picked right behind me that's probably going to take away a couple of my big picks on the flip around in the second round.
For sure.
Well, it's time for the 102. I mean, it's you or the Guantanamo Bay Flying Squirrels. Neither of you have picked at 101. So I guess we're spinning for the 101. Well, we'll spin. Would you prefer to spin for the 101 or the 102?
Looking at the blue and red on the wheel, favorite color is blue. We're gonna go for the 102. Whoever selected, they'll get the 102, and whoever was less, look at it as a blessing or a curse, depends how you look at it, but they'll be getting the 101 today.
All right, then we will be spinning right now. I don't know if everybody in the league is going to believe us. I think we're time stamped in the top right that the commissioners are sitting here with top three picks, but it's time stamped. We'll be all good. Let's spin for that 102. Here it is, the 102 and the 101. Well, there it is. The Guantanamo Bay Flying Squirrels will be picking at 102. They've never picked this high in the draft. The highest they've been is 104. So you've got to imagine after finishing 10th in the league, last place, the best they've finished is 6th. They've got to be ecstatic to be getting a top caliber player.
Yeah, for sure. They're gonna be able to get the one of the top, and talk with their manager and making deals with them during the draft last year. It'll be interesting. They like to target some of those big names, and they've had it panned out for them. They just ultimately haven't had the depth of a team to be able to have the whole season pan out for them. But it'll be interesting. The dual managers. Be interesting to see where they go with this.
Yeah, in the past 2 years, they've drafted Tyreek Hill. One of those was via trade. He is no longer listed in the first round, so we'll see if he finds his way in. But let's take a chat to the double managed Guantanamo Bay Flying Squirrels. All right, we're joined with now one of the two managers for the Guantanamo Bay Flying Squirrels. Obviously, not the finish to last year you wanted, finishing last at 5-9. What's kind of looking for the turnaround here heading into the 2025 draft and season?
Yeah, so I would say with the first year of me joining, helping out with Josh, I think we did pretty well. I think we finished fourth and made the playoffs. And we were looking on building on that the next year. Unfortunately, we were hit with a little bit of the injury bug, but also it was my poor decision making in the draft to draft 4 quarterbacks. Using that as a trade strategy did not go as well because all 4 quarterbacks sucked. Really made it impossible to do anything. And with some, I would say, bad trade partners, a deal that was supposed to go through never went through, and we just never could catch up. So looking forward towards this season, it's a better draft strategy and making sure that we find the right trade partner when we need to make a trade.
Fair enough. Well, a learning experience for you. Now we get to your pick. What pick in the draft, if you got to choose your positioning, would you want the most? What can help you succeed?
Well, you see, I always like to, the superstar number 1 pick is always number 1 or number 2 pick is always sexy, right? We always want the Patrick Mahomes, even though that's quarterback and that's later on, but we want like a Tyreek Hill or a really good wide receiver running back. But honestly, I think being able to draft closer to each other instead of waiting a whole round for a pick really helps. Because instead of having 1 superstar and then 1 average guy, I like to have 2 well-rounded guys. And that's also what's kind of bit us in the butt the last season and the last 2 seasons. So if I had to pick, because there's how many draft picks or how many teams? There's
the first round. So
10.
1 for 10.
Okay. I would not be upset with being in the middle of the pack. I think if I had to choose, honestly, 6 or 7 or 8 would be nice.
And on the flip side of that, where would you not want to pick? Where's the one pick where you might not be happy seeing that come across in the lottery here?
No, kind of describing this, it seems kind of flip-flop. I don't really want the higher numbers. I mean, you get a really good player, but like I said, we like to build a good, well-rounded team. I would say first pick's awesome, right? And last, usually you really want the first pick, but I honestly, I wouldn't really want to take this year. Again, it's just getting a more well-rounded team. Like, yeah, you could get the superstar, but then you have to wait a long time. So probably not number 1 or 2. I think I would honestly want a later draft picks.
Fair enough. Fair
Yeah.
enough. Well, looking at the history of the Guantanamo Bay Flying Squirrels, obviously you haven't been here for that entire history, but first year in the draft, you pick 110, take Josh Allen. Next year, 108, that's Delvin Cook. You join in, and then you get the 104, you take Tyreek Hill. And last year, you pick at the 104, traded around for Tyreek Hill again. Is Tyreek Hill in the cards in the first round here?
Yeah, I mean, he had a very weird season, and I would leave that a lot up to the situation and off the field stuff, which was it was annoying because he was arguably the best wide receiver the year before, and I think that's really what propelled us to do well and make the playoffs. But I mean, if Tua's healthy and he's done having too many baby mamas and having too many kids and having off the field issues, then I think he could be in play. Honestly, I really would just be happy with a good wide receiver because I love my wide receiver core in fantasy. So if he's there, maybe. But we'll have to see, man. I mean, it's not a foregone conclusion, but it is a possibility.
All right. Well, I can confirm as of right now, we're talking early May or late May. You got some time till August rolls around when we draft.
Yep.
That draft board shifts up a lot. Tyreek's currently projected in the 3rd round, so
okay,
you pick him in the 1st round. But
yeah.
I think you'll be happy maybe with this year. The Guantanamo Bay Flying Squirrels will pick at the best position they've ever picked at in terms of number wise. You guys will be picking at 102 this year.
Okay.
So the 2nd overall pick in the draft.
Okay.
How are we feeling about that?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I feel like my philosophy is kind of flip-flop compared to others, but thinking about having the number 2 overall pick, you get a really good superstar, and if you make a wise decision at number 2, that can make up for the ground for your next player, right? Like I was talking about, I like a more well-rounded team, not really looking at top heavy, and then with bench players and stuff, it can get a little iffy. But if you get a really good player there, it can make up a lot of ground. So I'm very happy with the number 2 pick, and even especially finishing last, it feels good.
Good. Well, I'm happy that you're happy with that. We do like to ask everybody the one question on everybody's mind, because you guys won't know until the video goes up. Who do you think has the first pick in this year's draft?
Oh man. I mean, obviously it's hard. I don't know why, but first thought is Zach.
All right.
I just have a feeling Zach's gonna get it, or a Brady Swipe. Those are the two guys that I think might have the first overall pick.
Well, fair. The Zestmeisters have picked at 102 twice and 101, obviously last year. So a guy who thrives in the top of the draft. We'll see if that prediction is correct. But appreciate your time. Congrats on the 102. Excited to see what you do this year and see if you can get things off and rolling at the 102 spot in the NFC.
Yes, sir. I'm excited, and hopefully we can turn this season into a playoff run and hopefully championship, and not finishing dead last again.
Hey, well, best of luck. We appreciate your time. That was the manager of the Guantanamo Bay Flying Squirrels. All right. We don't even need to spin for the 101. We know who's picking here. For the first time ever, the Rocky River Rough Riders will be picking at 101.
I think Greg might have gotten it.
Here I come.
I think Greg might have gotten it. I think Greg might have gotten it. I think Greg might have gotten it.
Finished 3rd last year at 9-5, the league's best record in the regular season. That is your best finish. Do you think you can do some damage with the 101? I know it's not where you've wanted to pick, but you're picking here now.
Yeah, I think it's going to be good. I think, obviously the 101 something everyone dreams of. You can go out and get that best player, hoping maybe it becomes a little bit more clear as we get closer to draft time, who might be that actual true 101. Right now I can think of right off the top of my head a couple options who might be the 101. And, That end of second round pick, not ideal. If I don't pick a quarterback or don't trade, looking at potentially falling in quarterback to a lower quarterback and kind of having two mid quarterbacks, but not too worried. We've had great success there. Last season, Bo Nix mid-season pickup ended up being one of my top performing players. So, I'm interested to see what I can do with it. And, potentially you might be talking to me with not the 101 when we get to draft day. So
That's definitely a possibility. Trades are all on the board, and you've been definitely somebody that has not picked conventionally. You look at 2021, you pick Travis Kelce at the 104. Then the next year, you're back at the 104. You pick Josh Allen, first quarterback off the board. You follow that up at the 106, Travis Kelce in the 106. And then 103, you trade back a spot to get Jamar Chase. So definitely, you never know with yourself. And you just kind of mentioned it. Maybe there's a trade coming our way.
yeah, I think, last year we might have found a little bit of a groove, with the trade we made, and I might have liked the way things kind of went there. Ultimately ended up trading Jamar away, but, that was something we had to do. We had to get back on the right path for the season, and was criticized at the time, but looking back, definitely got more value out of the players I received in the trade, and, I'm excited to see what happens with it, and we'll definitely see if that 101 ends up in my hands come draft day.
Yeah, you got a lot of time to think through it, go through the process. And it is a murky, for what feels like the first time in a couple of years, a murky 101. There's definitely a couple players that come to mind when you think of the 101, and definitely some options that you can go in if you prefer a running back or a wide receiver in that spot or something else in your case.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely hard, just thinking here of a quarterback that deserves to go 101. Josh Allen, a bread and butter, been on my team a few times, but, he's starting to get older and with that big contract, you wonder if he's going to take his foot off the gas a little bit and, kind of fall on fantasy value. So it'll definitely be interesting to see where I end up going with this pick. And like I said, if this pick ends up mine.
Well, that'll do it for our draft lottery. Everything is set from the 110 to the 101. We'll go through the order here quickly. It'll be the Chameleons at the 110. Coming in at the 109, the Zest Meisters. And then the 108 swings back to Lyndon the Crow. Then we go to 1-7. It's the Empire Strikes Back. The 1-6, the Bangkok Ball and Boas. Then the 1-5, the Brooklyn Bunnies. The 1-4, the Michigan Avengers. The 1-3, the Tucson Gila Monsters. And then we go to the 1-2, the Guantanamo Bay Flying Squirrels. And of course, the 101 for the first time this season, the Rocky River Rough Riders. So what an incredible first round that's been set. I know we enjoyed doing this and we can't wait to see how these picks turn out. What, you got any other final words for us, Commissioner Greg, before we wrap up this video?
No, I think that's going to be about it. It's excited to see, as the head commissioner, let the draft trading begin, and it'll be interesting to see. I suspect there's going to be an influx of deals right as this window kind of opens, and maybe a dead period, and then obviously right as draft day comes, there's going to be a crunch to try to, put yourself in better place in the draft, in your opinion, and maybe chase some people as the board becomes a little bit more concrete as far as where players are going to end up.
Well, definitely going to be exciting. We'll keep you updated on all those draft pick trades. That'll do it for myself and for Commissioner Greg. We thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you again real soon on the Nathan Sports Talks channel.